Now it's south through the province of La Mancha. Crossing into Andalusia, our first stop is Cordoba. Like Toledo, this was a multicultural city, but unlike it, it was torn apart by conquest. The 1,200-year-old Great Mosque-Cathedral shows the blending of Moorish and Catholic designs. The 856-pillared double arches of the central prayer hall use repeating patterns of meticulously formed red porphyry and white marble. It seems like a forest of stone. Later, in Barcelona, we'll see another magnificent church with striking pillars. When it was a mosque, it was said to be large enough for 46,000 supplicants. It is only used for Catholic services nowadays. This former Islamic prayer center, the mihrab, comprises a grand dome with crossing ribs and the horseshoe arch. As is the case with most Islamic art, only geometric or floral patterns and Quranic verses are engraved, no human images. Those appear in the Catholic area. Entering the main chapel, the contrast is striking. Similar to Toledo's cathedral, there is an enormous monstrance used to display an object of piety. On the way out, this funny red-lipped stonework catches our eye. We pass an intricate statue called the Triumph of San Rafael, dedicated to the patron of Cordoba. Then it's downhill toward the Guadalquivir River and the Puerta del Puente, which leads to the Roman bridge. Only 2 of the 15 arches are original, but that's pretty impressive for an actively used structure that's over 2,100 years old. 2 elegantly dressed horse-drawn carriage drivers solicit riders as we depart this grand and quiet city. Dotting the roadside on the ride south are these amusing and curious 46-foot-tall billboards shaped like bulls. They no longer advertise the name of their sherry maker, but have become so popular that they're now a national symbol of Spain. Hey, there's another larger-than-life Don Quixote, spear at the ready, prepared to joust at windmills. While these old windmills don't grind much grain anymore, Spain puts its natural energy resources to work with many modern wind power and solar energy stations. Sevilla, the 4th largest city in Spain, home to very strong Catholic traditions, bullfighting, and flamenco. Our bus driver, Alejandro, skillfully maneuvers through the narrow streets. He's doing much better than the driver of this Picasso car. On our own, away from the guided tour, we seek the huge, whimsical wooden Metropol Parasol building. It's billed as the largest wooden structure in the world. Because the building-lined streets near it are so narrow and blind our view, we manage to miss it several times. Finally, kind strangers point us in the right direction. And then, there it is, sprawling like its nickname, the Mushrooms. This is a big change from the Baroque, Gothic, and Renaissance buildings seen elsewhere in the city. Children enjoy it from their playground eye level. Passing the Macarena Basilica, we arrive at the main cathedral and the surrounding plaza, a beehive of activity. It's also one of the biggest churches in the world, with artwork resembling that of Toledo's. Formerly a minaret, the bell tower is a major symbol of the city. But it's the Casa de Pilatos, or Pilate's house, that we closely inspect. It dates to the 16th century and is located on a road with depictions of the Way of the Cross. Inside is a jewel of Roman, Mudéjar, and Renaissance designs. We tour the first floor and gardens. More than many places we visited, the feeling is of being transported to another time. Elegant archways lead to rooms with colorful coffered ceilings abutting mosaics of ceramic tiles on the walls. The courtyard blossoms with Greek and Roman statuary, centered with the fountain of the god Janus and busts of Roman leaders such as Mark Antony and the Emperor Vespasian. Continuing the exploration, there are more ornately decorated rooms with large gold-colored spheres set atop tables. Further in, and past a large model of a helmet, is a quiet garden where a turtle dove coos. This tapas restaurant has a very convivial vibe. The food is good, and there's a number of gregarious families among the patrons. Next to our table, one group plays cards. The waiter doesn't keep a paper tally, but chalks up a table by the bar to keep track. When it's our turn to pay, he writes the amount due on our table. The Plaza de España was built nearly 90 years ago for an exposition. On this quiet and peaceful morning, the ornate buildings beautifully reflect in the canal. A castanets vendor and birds break the silence. An empty semicircular walkway leads to the dominant South Tower, which brilliantly is catching the golden sun. Lining one side is the alcoves of the provinces, a set of tiled benches, one for each Spanish province. Here's the one for Barcelona. Sevilla is known for flamenco dance and music. We feel the need to get to know it too. There's a dinner show at El Palacio Andaluz. The dramatic music and dancing moves quickly from the sad and graceful to staccato foot stamping and blazing guitar strumming, stirring the heart of the audience. Granada and the once wealthy Alhambra is next. Driving in, we pass the entrance to a cave dwelling, one of many in this region. The Alhambra and gardens of the Generalife Villa are all about water. The canals, pools, and fountains are all gravity-fed from the Sierra Nevada mountains. The extensively landscaped gardens are blooming with lotus and water lilies nearly everywhere in mid-September, and afford splendid views of Granada and the surrounding mountains. Despite the vast crowds, there is a peaceful, unhurried atmosphere. The narrow, cypress-lined paths offer peeks into gardens beyond. Even the mosaic paths themselves beautifully mirror the natural surroundings. On the way downhill to the Moorish portion of the Alhambra, we pass several buildings constructed later by the Spaniards. These Spanish and Moorish architectural styles are noticeably different. Ornate bronze masks, rings, and beveled stonework decorate the palace of Charles V. Unique to the palace courtyard is the circle in a square design. It never was used to house royalty, but was once used as a bullfighting ring. Through the Gate of Wine begins our Alhambra tour. The main citadel construction began in the 1200s by the Moors. While some of the building exteriors look austere and fortress-like, the courtyards and interiors contain a vast array of colorful and contrasting materials. Craning our necks to see wooden and stone ceiling designs, we notice they constantly change from chamber to chamber. In the Court of the Lions and home of the Sultan's harem, 12 marble lions surround a fountain. That seems to be the only violation of the Islamic rule of no human or animal images. Ironically, the lions are said to have come from the house of a Jewish vizier. Otherwise, written throughout the buildings in stone are Quranic verses such as the words, "There is no victor but Allah," and similar phrases. The mehwar was a hall of justice and prayer. The Alhambra architects intended to cover every square inch with decoration, exactly what we saw. The meditative and beautifully symmetric Court of the Myrtles has a pool that mirrors itself and this local feline. Similar to it is the aquatic aesthetic of the Pardo Palace and Tower of the Ladies, our final stop in the lovely Alhambra. The Carthusian Monastery of Granada no longer is actively used by that order of mendicants. So why visit it? Because inside lies a collection of martyrdom art and one of the most Baroque churches in the world. The former refectory, or dining hall, is lined with large paintings. Some are typical scenes for the faithful. However, many have a martyrdom theme, where the brothers are being brutally, albeit bloodlessly, persecuted. They are depicted being stabbed, axed in the head, and otherwise maimed and killed for refusing to recognize Henry VIII as the supreme head of the church, among other heresies. Yet many of these monks have placid expressions. Death personified also stands outside of the nearby cathedral, seeking tips. Further along is the main area of worship, the presbytery. Here the Baroque wonder fills the eyes. In a side room are numerous examples of terracea, which is furniture intricately inlaid with pearl, tortoiseshell, and other materials. The high altar includes gold-painted wooden sculptures and mirrors, and is covered with a vaulted ceiling. Beyond it lies the even more ornate sacristy, reminiscent of full-scale cathedrals such as in Toledo. Despite having built the church, the monks were not permitted into the sacristy when it was in use. They weren't entirely left out, however, because they could look in from portholes on either side of it. In downtown Granada lie the narrow corridors of the Alcaceria, its grand bazaar. Crowded against each other, small shops offer a variety of goods, such as colorful lamps, lacy floral embroidered shawls, locally made hand-painted fans, and treats like almond turan and saffron spices. This evening our dinner is at Bodegas Castaneda. Castaneda is another restaurant that delivers an authentic Spanish dining experience with loads of tapas featuring delicious jamón ibérico, a fine selection of wine, and locally brewed beer. We wander out for a gelato dessert, gawking at colorfully lit statues and people watching around the main square. We manage to get lost again in the maze of streets. No worries. We take one of the plentiful cabs back to our hotel. This sign nicely sums up how we feel about Granada.